In May 2013, a man spent 60 hours trapped inside a sunken ship on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. He survived. The official report explains how. What it does not explain is what he heard in the final hours. Not fish, not the hull contracting, not pressure. Something slower, more deliberate, in patterns. This video is about what is underneath the ocean floor, not deeper, underneath, because the floor is not what the maps say it is. And Harrison Okene is not the only one who has heard something knock from the other side of it. Let's start somewhere familiar. Let's start somewhere you might actually go on a holiday. 30 feet below the surface of the ocean, the world is still recognizable. There is light, there is color. You can see the surface above you, a shimmering ceiling of silver and white. You could swim to it in seconds. You are safe. This is where most recreational divers spend their time. Coral reefs, tropical fish, the occasional sea turtle drifting past like it has nowhere in particular to be. It is genuinely beautiful down here. People pay a lot of money to come here and take photographs. But here is something those photographs don't show you. At 30 feet, the pressure on your body is already twice what it is on land. The danger you cannot feel is the most dangerous kind. If you removed your equipment at this depth, the pressure difference would not kill you instantly. It would take a few minutes. Those would not be comfortable minutes. But 30 feet is nothing. 30 feet is barely a beginning. At 100 feet, the light is dim and blue. Not blue the way a swimming pool is blue. Blue the way a bruise is blue. Blue the way the sky looks right before a storm arrives and you realize you left all the windows open. 100 feet is where recreational diving ends and something else begins. Below this depth, the nitrogen in your breathing gas starts doing something to your brain. It is called nitrogen narcosis, and what it feels like is exactly like being drunk. Suddenly, without warning, your judgment deteriorates. Your reflexes slow. Some divers report feelings of profound euphoria at depth, a sense that everything is fine, that there is no danger, that they could simply stay down here forever and everything would be wonderful. This feeling, serene and warm and utterly convincing, has killed an extraordinary number of people. The ocean at 100 feet is not trying to hurt you. It simply does not care about you at all. And in a place that does not care about you, your own brain becoming your enemy is about the worst thing that can happen. On May 26, 2013, a tugboat called the Jascon 4 capsized in the Gulf of Guinea, 20 miles off the coast of Nigeria. 12 men were on board. One survived. His name was Harrison Okene. He was the ship's cook. He had gotten up to use the bathroom when the boat went over. The water came in fast. He pushed through it. He found an air pocket in the engineer's cabin. 4 feet of breathable space in an upside-down ship sitting 100 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. He survived by holding on to an overturned wash basin to keep his head above the water, by splashing the water around him with his hands, which, though he had no way of knowing this, was dissolving the carbon dioxide in his air pocket and keeping the gas from reaching lethal levels. His body kept him alive through a mechanism he didn't understand, in a darkness he couldn't see through, in a situation that should have been unsurvivable. When the diver's hand touched his in the dark, Harrison grabbed it. The diver nearly let go. Not because of the shock of finding a living man where there should have been only bodies, not because of the darkness or the cold or the pressure or the sound of the hull groaning above them like something in pain. He nearly let go because of what he felt on the other side of Harrison's hand. The official report does not mention this. Official reports rarely do. What the report says is this: Harrison Okene survived 60 hours on the floor of the Gulf of Guinea, inside an air pocket created by the inversion of his sunken vessel. He was found alive, decompressed safely, and returned to the surface. That is true. That is not all of it. At some point during those 60 hours, the sound changed. Fish make a specific sound against metal, a soft, persistent, rhythmic sound. What Harrison heard in the final hours was not that. It was slower, more deliberate, as if whatever was outside the hull had stopped eating and started listening. And then, very quietly, had started knocking. Metal carries sound strangely underwater, so it is entirely possible that what Harrison heard was simply pressure, contraction, the natural settling of a vessel adjusting to depth. I am saying that pressure does not knock in patterns, and I am saying that Harrison, when asked about his time in the dark, always stops at a specific moment. Not the moment the water rose, not the moment the bodies floated past, not even the moment the diver's hand found his in the dark. He stops when they ask about the final hours. He changes the subject with the specific efficiency of someone who decided, a long time ago, that there are things you do not put into words, because words make them more real, and some things are dangerous enough already. It is said that the ocean has a bottom. That is one of the kinder lies. Most people, when they imagine the deep ocean, imagine descent. They imagine going down, further down, past the light, past the color, past the pressure zones, past the named trenches and the cataloged creatures, and the slowly accumulating sediment of everything that has ever died above. They imagine the seafloor as an ending, a place where the going down stops. And in a sense, they are right. The going down does stop, but that is not because there is a floor. It is because at a certain depth, down stops being the right word. I know this because I went there. Not deeper. Back. I went below the place your maps call the bottom. Not in the way you are imagining. Not in a vessel. Not with equipment. Not with a team monitoring my vitals from a surface ship. I went the way you go somewhere in a dream, except I was not dreaming. And when I came back, I had sediment in my pockets that no laboratory has been able to classify, and a sound in my left ear that has not stopped in what I estimate to be several years. I do not know exactly how long I was there. Time does not behave the same way in the folded places. This is what I saw. Below a certain point, a point your instruments cannot measure because your instruments stop working before you reach it, and not because of pressure, the marine snow does not fall down. It falls sideways, not blown, not carried by current, sideways, as if down has been replaced by something that has no name in any language currently spoken. I watched it for a long time, the flakes of dead matter drifting sideways through water that had become the color of a word you cannot remember. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. It was the first indication that I had reached the place where the world folds. The water here is a membrane. I moved through it slowly. The dead things here did not drift. They moved as if they remembered how to move. Not alive. I want to be precise about this. Not alive. A fish I did not recognize turned to face me without using its fins. It had no eyes, not empty sockets, no sockets at all, just the smooth continuation of its body where a face would have been. It held its position in the sideways falling snow, and it faced me the way a wall faces you, completely, without interest, and I understood then that I was not being watched. I was being registered, the way a place registers that something new has entered it. I went further back. The water changed texture. I do not mean temperature. I do not mean salinity. The water moved around me like something that had been holding its shape for a very long time and was mildly inconvenienced by my presence. And below me, or in the direction that used to be below, I saw the seam. It was not a crack, not a rupture. It was a place where the water became too still, not frozen, not solid. Still in the way a hell breath is still. And then, very slowly, the seam answered. Not with sound, with shape. Not any shape I understood. Not a door, not a crack, not a wound. Something closer to a mouth deciding whether the thing in front of it was worth speaking to. The flakes nearest to it drifted forward, not up, not down, through, as if something below the seam had its own sky, as if that sky had called them by name. And then I understood. It was not opening for the snow. It was opening for me. I reached toward the seam. My hand passed through it. It came out dry. Not simply dry, weightless. I understood then that I was not at the bottom of anything. I was at the top of something else. I pushed my face through. I expected the violence of water, the specific punishment of pressure entering the places it is not supposed to enter. Instead, I breathed, and then I crossed through entirely. The ocean was above me, not around me, not below me, above. The entire ocean hanging overhead like a ceiling of black liquid. The seam I had crossed suspended above my head, trembling very slightly at its edges, as if it was trying to close. And below me, I am not going to describe what was below me, not because I cannot, because some things change shape when you put them into words. They become smaller than they are, less accurate. And what was below me deserves to be described accurately or not at all. What I will tell you is this. The light coming up through the mist below me was not a color I had seen before. Not blue, not white, not the bioluminescence of deep water creatures. It was sourceless. It came from everywhere below me and nowhere specific. The way light comes through skin when you hold your hand over a torch in the dark, as if whatever was below me was lit from inside, as if the mist was not mist at all, but the surface of something breathing. My shadow fell downward toward it, not cast from above, pulled from below, as if whatever was down there had already decided where my shadow belonged. My hand began to rise. I did not choose to raise it. I pulled it back. I want to be honest about what happened next. Something below the mist noticed me. Not with eyes, not with any mechanism I have a word for. The mist did not part. Nothing rose toward me. The light simply became more present, as if whatever produced it had turned its attention upward and found me. I began to remember places I had never been, complete memories, textured, specific, with the smell and weight of real experience. Places I had apparently already visited in some accounting of myself I had no access to from above. I almost remembered a name, not my name. I did not let myself finish remembering it, because I understood that if I did, I would not be leaving, not die, return. become what was already waiting for me in the mist below. I turned back. The light below me did not change when I left. It did not follow me. It did not dim. It simply remained. The mist closed below me like a surface, like something that did not need to watch me leave, because it already knew I would come back. The knocking Harrison heard was not fish. It was not pressure. It was not the hull contracting in the cold. It was a sound between firmaments, the echo of a lower sky pressing against the boundary above it. The knock was not a request. It was a census, the lower world moving through its periodic confirmation that the world above is still occupied, still populated, still answering. Harrison answered by surviving, by making sound, by being unmistakably, stubbornly alive inside a metal hull on the wrong side of the ocean floor. The lower world heard him, noted him, moved on. This is the part the official report did not include. This is the part that would have required a different kind of official. Perhaps the old stories were not metaphors. Perhaps the underworlds were not invented by people afraid of death. Perhaps they were drawn by people who had seen the edges of the seam and used the only words their languages allowed. We called them underworlds because we had forgotten the word for lower sky. The ocean floor is not the bottom of the world. It is the ceiling of something older. The ocean is not deep because it goes down. It is deep because it goes through. The next time you stand at the edge of it and look down, you may not be looking into a depth. You may be looking at a sky. And whatever lives in the world below that sky may be looking back up at you, the same way you look up at stars, wondering whether anything up there is still listening. I went back once. I know the way. I am not going to tell you where the seam is, but I will tell you this. The next time something knocks and you cannot explain it, do not answer. The upper world depends on certain things remaining uncounted. You may be one of them. I went back. Now you know what is underneath the floor of the ocean. Until the next place.